For some of those that are new, my name is Stephen North. I'm the Director of Safety and Security at SLCC. We've been through quite a bit together here since I've been here in my short 3 going on 4 years now. That's almost 4 years, actually, yeah. We've been through a lot. The 2 things that I've been asked to talk about today definitely is something I'm familiar with, is safety, and that's going to be infectious diseases to active shooters. So, of course, when we talk about infectious diseases, the main thing we really think about now is everything that's been on the news. Every time you open up the newspaper or whatever, I mean, everyone talks about it all the time, is definitely COVID-19. So we'll be discussing that. I'd like to kind of talk about some of the other infectious diseases that are possible on campus. And then also we'll end with active shooter. So I have 45 minutes to talk. I don't really want to talk for 45 minutes. I'd like to have some feedback, some question and answers. So I've kind of split it up. I'd like to do about 15 minutes on infectious diseases and about 15 minutes on active shooter and about the last 10 or 15 minutes on question and answer. If you'd like, feel free to jump in and ask a question. I'll try not to get too sidetracked because, again, we only have 45 minutes and some of this stuff could go for forever and ever and ever. So we're going to really lightly brief on a few things that we've talked about, and we'll go ahead and get started. So again, I want to thank you all for being here. I know you had some good choices. Otherwise, there's no doubt I'm actually feeling kind of bad because I'm missing a couple of the good presentations myself, but hopefully they'll record them. And matter of fact, I have to remind myself to record this when they ask us to. So let me start that. Give me 1 second to figure out how to start the recording. All right. All right, looks like we're good. All right, so let's get started. All right, so here's the agenda. It's a real quick agenda. Like I said, we're going to spend a few minutes on each of the subjects, but I'd like to go ahead and keep it rolling. First, infectious diseases, the types and the basic descriptions, then the common thread for protection, and then also we're going to jump into active shooter, the warning signs, what to do, how to report it, how will you know, and then area assessments, and then we'll wrap up, and then we'll go into Q&A. So, 2 totally different topics. I mean, infectious diseases and active shooters. I mean, one can kill you faster. I mean, these are not great subjects to talk about, but they're things that I really do, and I'm happy that we are able to talk about. And I wish everyone was on this presentation so we could all kind of get the same information. But these are things basically that can hurt you at work. I mean, it's no doubt. And there's things that we definitely need to talk about and talk more often about. And as you know, there are new things coming out on both subjects every day. So something about this that I found ironic is prior to, say, February of last year, all we heard about was active shooters. We really didn't hear about a lot of infectious diseases on campus. All we heard was active shooters and churches and malls and shopping centers and also on campuses. But now the tables have turned. It's kind of like all we hear about now is COVID. So we're going from active shooter, now we're going to COVID. Does that mean that there's no active shooter situations that have happened since then, since last year? That's no. We definitely have had some. It's not been as prevalent, and we're kind of going to go into why that is, because there is a kind of a definite reason why we've switched from one to the other. All right, so safety. What is safety? Safety is maintaining the well-being of all students, staff, faculty, and visitors. And notice that I put students, staff, faculty, and visitors. That's basically anyone that steps foot on our campus we're responsible for. And I say we, not just myself and my team. Literally every one of us is responsible for safety. Safety, when I generally think of safety, I'm thinking of like slip and falls, things like that are, like I've mentioned here, general physical hazards. But you can also lump in infectious diseases because now we're talking about COVID. So we want to make sure everyone stays safe when they come on our campus. And if any one of you, unless you're brand new and this is your first day on the job, you know what I'm talking about. You have to answer a questionnaire before you step foot on campus, before you're allowed in campus, I should say, in the buildings. you're asked to wear a mask. You're asked to social distance. There are things that are incorporated into our safety just every day now, literally. I mean, this morning when I left, my daughter was waiting on the bus with my older daughter, and she said, "Dad, you got your mask." I mean, that's crazy. A year ago, we would have never thought about that. And my daughter is 10 years old, so it's now part of our life. So we all have to know that this is going to be the new normal for a while. I know that term's been used a lot lately, but it definitely is. It's something that we're just going to have to get used to, so we can all get better and get past this. So how do we strive for safety? Obviously through training, fire safety operation systems, safety inspections, blah, 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 safety audits, preventing accidents. That's a big key element, preventing accidents on our campus. We want to make sure everyone stays as safe as possible when you do come to campus and when you are allowed in and when you do wear your mask. We want to make sure you don't have an accident. And then I underline contamination mitigations. We've talked about that already. The mask, the social distancing, staying out of crowds. Those are some ways that we can definitely combat and make sure we stay safe. So if you want to report a safety issue, I threw this slide in there. I know it's kind of somewhat off the beaten path of the infectious diseases, but I want to make sure to talk about this because a lot of people think that it's okay to email us with safety concerns. We want to get these things taken care of as soon as possible, literally as soon as possible. If we wait, someone could trip, someone could, whatever. We just want to make sure and get this taken care of as soon as possible. And I'm going to give you a list of our phone numbers here in just a second, so you can have that information on who to call, or you can talk to us in person. You can talk to your supervisor, or you can talk to any of the safety personnel or the security personnel that we have on campuses. You can call me, you can call Mike, Cheryl, whoever that we have. So infectious diseases. Here's a few types that doing research and in my experience on college campuses, and I'm sure you all know exactly what I'm talking about. Just about everybody's been to college. You work here on a college campus, so you know what I'm talking about. Common cold, the flu, pneumonia, whether it be viral or bacterial, norovirus, meningitis, mumps, and then of course I threw in COVID-19. You can't leave that one out. These are just a few of the things that we're going to go over real quick. All right, common cold. We all know what the common cold is. It's something. It's probably the most prevalent of things that we can catch here on a campus. And how does that happen? Just by being around other people that's got the cold. And unfortunately, that last sentence, there is no cure for the common cold. Believe it or not, we've got cures for just about everything else, but we cannot cure a common cold. The flu, viral infection that attacks your respiratory system. Nose, throat, and lungs, it's commonly called the flu. So if you hear influenza, if you hear me refer to that, we're talking about the flu. And when you read some of these symptoms, it kind of makes you think of something else, doesn't it? I mean, that's why a lot of people, they go in and get tested for COVID, they may have the flu or vice versa. And for the flu, it pretty much works its way through your system. So we got the viral pneumonia. It can be from the common cold or other viruses. It's more upper respiratory, but when it gets down into lower lungs, you can definitely get really sick, and unfortunately, you can die from that. So, and then we have bacterial. And it's caused by certain bacteria, and it's usually caused by strep. Two different, very similar pneumonia, but they can be treated separately, differently, I should say. All right, stomach flu. This is probably the biggest one that kills a lot of people across the world, if you will. It can happen to any age. And as you see, I've bolded schools, hospitals, restaurants. There was a huge outbreak, 3 of them in 2018 that I was doing some research on. So it can happen on college campus as well. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of things on our campus that these other major colleges or major universities have. We don't have housing. We really don't have food services. We really don't have sporting events. We don't have large major events. And now with COVID, we really don't have a lot of people that are gathering together. So that helps us in a lot of aspects. And the stomach flu. I think we've all had a bout of this or two, I'm sure. This is mainly coming from the food service industry. And again, you see that hand hygiene, environmental disinfection. Sounds a lot like some things we can do to combat COVID too. So meningitis B, it's not very frequent, but it does happen on some college campuses. Unfortunately, when you're infected with it, the few people that do get infected with it, it's pretty nasty stuff. It can, even if you survive it, you can have problems later on. So, and you'll hear about it every once in a while. You hear about a college campus that has an outbreak. It's strange, and it usually is linked to someone that's gone to another country, comes back, and of course, as you know, on college campuses, you know, the students get together, they do their parties or whatever it is, classes, whatever, when they get together, so they have these outbreaks. Mumps. Believe it or not, there's still people that get infected with the mumps. So the symptoms appear later. You see the 16 to 18 days after infection. So you know, tracing that's kind of hard, but it definitely is still around. So it definitely happens in schools, universities, and again, we don't have the athletics or the large events and whatnot. So we're actually pretty good with that. COVID-19, this is the one everyone's talking about. So interesting fact about COVID-19, and somebody, if you want to answer this, you're more than welcome to come off mute. Do you know what the 19 stands for in COVID-19? That's a pretty simple one. Does anybody want to answer that one?
The year it first showed up.
Absolutely. So here's another question about the term COVID-19. Of course, as you know, COVID-19 is not the first name that was named for this particular disease, but COVID-19. Does anyone know what the COVID, COVID, stands for? No one? So it's kind of a smashed together abbreviation. The CO of COVID stands for corona. The VI stands for virus, and the D stands for disease. So you have COVID-19. So just a little thought for you. Let you go home and impress somebody with that information. Anyway, as we know, COVID-19, you know, it can come from just something as some people don't even know they have it. Those are the cases we really worry about because they can be super spreaders. But there are also people that do succumb to this disease. So it has a wide range. You can get it within just a matter of hours from being around someone that has it, or it can take up to 2 weeks. It just all depends. And like, again, some people don't even know they have it. I know you've heard all this, but I'd like to go ahead and repeat it to make sure that we all understand it. Wear a mask that covers your nose and mouth. When I put that on there, I kind of giggled because how many times have you been out and you see people wearing the mask, you know, around their neck, or they wear it just on their mouth, or they have it sideways, and we all understand why, because it's not very comfortable to wear those masks. But obviously, you need to cover your nose and your mouth. Stay 6 feet apart. And when a lot of people see 6 feet apart, that's what they kind of gauge. There's no harm in going 7 feet or 8 feet or 10 feet apart. The farther, the better. Obviously, avoid crowds. We're just coming off the holidays. You know, Dr. June was talking about earlier. We've got an increase of cases, especially here in Louisiana. There's no doubt our case. It's definitely not been under 2,000 or 3,000 for a while now, and if it is, the next day it's almost tripled. So we're getting in the 4,000 and 5,000+ cases per day. That's just insane. So avoid poorly ventilated indoor spaces, and wash your hands often with soap and water and hand sanitizer if soap and water is not available. So what symptoms to watch out for? I think you all probably have these memorized, and there are other ones, but I want to make sure that everyone knows of fever, cough, headaches, fatigue, muscle or body aches, loss of taste or smell, sore throat, nausea, diarrhea. So I'm sure there's a few people on this call that know someone that's had COVID. If you don't, I'm surprised. Some of you on the call may have already had COVID. Either you did know it or you do know it or don't know it. So COVID's affecting everyone. That's my point. It's affecting everyone around us. I remember having a staff meeting when COVID really was starting to come around, and there was a pretty good concern. we had a staff meeting, and I told my staff that, eventually we will have someone in our life, whether it's friend or family or even ourselves, that's affected by COVID. It's just the unfortunate fact about this disease. So what to do if you're sick? Obviously, stay home, except to get medical care. If you need to get medical care, go get medical care. Isolate yourself from other members of your family to prevent the spread. I know that's hard, but that is something that if you can do it, definitely do it, especially the elderly. Your friends and family, they're elderly. Definitely stay away from them. Even if you don't feel sick, you can definitely spread COVID-19 to everyone else. We talked about that already, and it's definitely a fact. Get care immediately if you're having emergency warning signs like trouble breathing or pain and pressure in your chest. Again, wear your mask. You're going to see that. Stay 6 feet. And the easy way to gauge 6 feet is 2 arm lengths. You hold your arm length out, someone else holds their arm length out, and that's approximately 6 feet. Avoid crowds. I know it sounds like I'm rehashing, but again, same thing. All right, CDC. If y'all haven't been on the CDC website lately, it is amazing. I mean, it's like everything is, except for something about deli meats. I mean, that dude just threw that in there, but everything is COVID-19 related right now. CDC, you definitely go on there and get some great information. All right, so we're about halfway through. That's about right. Cool. All right, so we're going to keep on going. Active shooter and active threat. All right, so why am I including active threat along with active shooter? There's a little difference in the two. You can use them interchangeably, but active threat's just a little different, and I'll explain why. So active shooter, definition, is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined space or other populated area. Active shooters will usually continue to move throughout the building or an area until stopped by law enforcement, suicide, or some other type of intervention. For the most part, this term is meant for when only a firearm is used. So active shooter, they're using a firearm and they're actively engaged in shooting. So active threat, that's including incidents where they're doing the same type of thing, but they're also can be using other weapons, such as a bomb or a vehicle or any other device. So we're kind of switching that. The term is kind of switching from active shooter to active threat. Active threat is kind of more holistic. It's not specific to just shooting. So I may use them interchangeably when I'm talking, so I apologize, but they both basically mean that someone's actively trying to hurt or kill someone. And again, the population is what we're talking about too. Populated area. It's not just a one-on-one, it's a populated area for the most part. All right. Anyone can help prevent and prepare for potential active shooter or active threat situations. And I did highlight in bold prevent and prepare. Prevent is to keep it from happening. So you're doing things ahead of time to keep it from happening. And preparing is to be ready and know what to do when it happens. So they're similar, but they're very different. And we'll kind of go into some more detail as we go along. So if y'all can see this is some statistics that I pulled up, and it's going to be from 2000 to 2018. This comes from the FBI. So we had 277 incidents between 2000 and 2018, and you can see the casualties. That's insane. And again, that's here in the U.S. Now we're going to be talking about 2018 incidents per year, and that's a breakdown from 2000. And as you can see, for the most part, it's been an increase. I wish I had the 2019, 2020 statistics, but unfortunately, the FBI, they're a little behind when they do push out their statistics. But that just gives you a good representation of these are major shooting events. Again, 2000, 2018, these are going to be locations. Now notice commerce is the majority, but that doesn't mean it could not happen on our campus, because as you can see, a good chunk of that pie is going to be education. And it does break down the institutes of higher education which is 5.4%. But still, just in general in schools, that's tremendous. That's really concerning. All right, how long does an active shooter last? According to the FBI, generally 69.8% of active shooter incidents ended in 5 minutes or less. If any of you have ever called the police in a situation, even if it's a critical situation, 5 minutes is a really long time, and it just seems like it's going to take forever. Will the police get there in time? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how close they are. Depends on what they're tied up on. There are a lot of factors. So in other words, what I'm trying to get at is most likely the event will be over before law enforcement gets there. So the other statistic is 2 minutes or less. That's a good chunk. That's 36.5%. So how will the active shooter incident end? Most likely it's going to be one of these 4 ways. Commit suicide, law enforcement will engage them, a citizen successfully restrains a shooter, or an armed citizen exchanges gunfire. Another way you could technically argue that they could be arrested just in general. They could give up, be arrested, but for the most part, these are the 4 ways that they will, the situation will end. All right, warning sign. So here we're going to talk about prevention. Anywhere there are people, there's a potential for an active shooter or active threat. I mean, you think about it, it's not going to happen in an empty building. It's not going to happen with just one person. There are signs. Rarely does a violent situation develop just out of the blue. It's pretty rare. There's always some type of precursor to that. I know no one wants to overact, but we definitely want you to report any concerning behavior. We really want to make sure that if you see something and something doesn't quite set right, give us a call. Give us a ring. You're never going to hear us say, oh, you shouldn't have called. This is silly. No, you're never going to hear that from us. We will investigate everything. And chances are we're going to be right there, and we're going to help call 911, or we're going to call 911. If you feel like you need to call 911 in a situation, please do. I know there was a time, especially whether it be college campus or in the general vicinity, 911, calling 911 was an absolute last. No, don't do it unless that's not the case. If you need to call 911, call 911. Because again, going back to that slide that we showed earlier, it can take a law firm to get there, and we can always cancel those officers while they're en route. So don't feel ashamed. Report your concern. You may actually save somebody's life. I mean, it's really true. All right. So suspicious behavior. This could be someone, they don't have to look like this. I just pulled some images off the internet. Unfortunately, they are wearing hoodies, and they do look suspicious. So these are the people, obviously, but they may not. They may be someone just as simple as, okay, you have a crowded building. Everyone's running around. They're in class. They look obviously like they're in class, but you got one character who doesn't wear a backpack, who doesn't have a book in their hands, kind of walking around, looking in classrooms or looking in offices. That's someone that you want to give us a ring about. Talk to us. Let us know what's going on. We'll investigate that. Does that mean that everyone that looks suspicious is actually someone that's threatening? No. We find that some of these cases, the majority of the cases that we go and investigate, they may be suspicious, but there's no threat. There really is a reason why they're there. They're looking for someone, or they're waiting for someone, or whatnot. That's no problem, but at least we checked into it. But either way, let us know. All right, aggressive behavior. This is a little easier one to identify, and I'm sure we've all been a part of the aggressive behavior. We've been on the receiving end of that. Anytime you see someone that's exhibiting physical aggression, and I can go into detail and tell you about what that looks like, but I think you all pretty much know what I'm talking about. It's someone that's, in your face, they're balling their fist up, they're angry, obviously they're a ticking time bomb. You definitely want to disengage as much as you can. Be safe. Contact us as soon as possible. We will definitely be there. We will definitely call 911. We want to make sure you stay safe as possible. All right, so now what should you do? So we're talking about the preparation part of it. You got to prepare. You've got to be prepared for this. So you definitely want to, in an active shooter situation, or an active threat situation, run, hide, or fight. For those of you that have been a part of my presentations in the past, you know I preach this. If you can, leave the area as fast as possible, as safe as possible. If you can't leave the area, if you feel like if you're going to leave the area, you may put yourself at risk, by all means, hide. Hide as fast as you can, hide as best you can. Lock the door, barricade the door if you can. Do what you can to survive. And if you have to, fight. There's no one that says you can't fight for your life. Of course, we don't promote that, but if that's something you need to do is fight to take out that threat, by all means, stay alive. So run, hide, or fight. Could you theoretically do all three? Absolutely. There may be a situation where you have to run, you have to hide, and then next thing you know, you're having to fight for your life. So just be aware, these are the things that will save your life. All right, lockdown evacuation procedure. These are things that when we come and talk to you all, and I'll get into that in just a second, but when we come and talk to you all in specific groups or in departments or in your staff meetings and whatnot, this is something we go over in detail. So you have to know your emergency escape routes. You have to know those. If you don't, you're pretty much keeping yourself in one area and you don't know which way to run. You don't know your exits. You don't know your floor plans. And for those of some of us that travel to different campuses, this is not about just where you primarily work at. This is all the campuses. Be aware. Think ahead of time of some areas, some rooms that would be safe. Think ahead, plan ahead. When I put down emergency numbers, make sure you know the emergency numbers to your local law enforcement. If it's not 911, if you have a number to your supervisor or each other's number, make sure you have those. And more importantly, know your address to those campuses. You'll be surprised at people that don't even know the address to their own campus they work at. That's crazy, because one of the things a 911 operator may ask, okay, what is your address? Because you may say, I'm at New Iberia campus. Well, there's 3 different buildings, 4, 5 different buildings you could technically be at with different addresses. So make sure you know specifically which building. It'll help law enforcement or in a medical situation. It may help ambulance or fire. Okay, how do you report? If you see something, say something. Please let us know. I keep preaching it. Let us know as fast as possible. Get as much information as you can. Again, I put this slide in there again. Don't be afraid to call 911. Don't be afraid to call us. Get your campus locations and address ahead of time, and also room number. Make sure you know your room numbers. A lot of people don't even know their office numbers. You know, it's silly, but it's just one of those things you have to think of ahead of time. All right, here's the numbers I want to make sure everyone has. Make sure if you want to screenshot this, if you want to take a picture of it, record these numbers. The first number is our main number, the 8914. You can just call 8914 or, of course, 337-521-8914. And you can also plug in my number, 337-521-6609. That is my office number, but that does ring to my cell phone. So anytime you can call me, 6609, that will ring over to my cell phone. And then we have our Assistant Director of Security, which is Mike Tarot. That's going to be his office number, 9048. Safety Coordinator. We're going to be hiring a new safety coordinator very soon. So his or her number, 6630-521-6630. Support Coordinator, which is Cheryl Tevis, 521-6659-6659. And our Supervisor of Security, 9074, 521-9074. Any of those numbers, except for the 6630, I don't think anybody's answering that. They may answer that at the main desk. So, but you'll get a hold of somebody. Okay, how will you know if there's an active shooter on campus? This question generally comes up because you may not be in the same building or in the same area. Hopefully you'll know with other people around you. You may be notified by security, but most likely if you are signed up for our Smart Notice, our emergency notification, which is Smart Notice currently, that is one way. You'll be text messaged information. You will have a phone call and an email. And you can submit as many numbers as you want to have that information go to. Again, I say that's for now. In the very near future, I believe it's the next few weeks, we're going to migrate completely over to Regroup. Regroup is another software mass notification program. That is something you do not have to sign up for. You will automatically be signed up for Regroup. So if you receive anything from that, you're going to see a number, and you're going to see whether if it's from safety and security or whatever other department sends out notification. But we will migrate to the Regroup mass notification. All right, so if you want more information on active shooter, please, I would say go to the FEMA website. FEMA course is IS-907. Everyone's free to take it. It's about an hour course. It's a pretty good, pretty detailed course, and you'll also get a certification, a FEMA certification for that. I definitely recommend you go ahead and get that information. It's got some videos and such attached. Great information. It's got some posters you can print out for your workplace. If you want those posters, we can print those out for you here at Safety and Security. Just email me or message me. We can get you taken care of with that. But this is definitely something that's very good information. I would recommend this for anybody. All right, I mentioned earlier about area assessments. I really would request that anybody that would like us, and I say us, myself, Mike, Cheryl, anybody, safety, whoever, we can come to your area, we can look and do an assessment. We do different types of assessments, either a safety assessment, just a general security assessment. We can do a threat assessment. We can also do safety and security training sessions. We can talk about safe rooms. A lot of people are really interested in identifying safe rooms and evacuation routes, lockdown procedures and whatnot. We really like to do that because generally we can talk about it all day, but until we come to your area and really talk about, okay, this is a really good place to lock down, or this is not because XYZ. So we can do that for you, and it's been very popular, and everyone really tends to gravitate towards more of that. It's more personalized. It just makes better sense. But just let us know. Give me a ring or send me an email, and we'll get you scheduled. We can come out there to your areas, wherever it may be. All right, I want to throw this in there real quick. I know it's not infectious diseases. I know it's not active shooter, but parking, if y'all want to get your new parking tag, please visit us over here at the Valcourt or talk to any of the security officers. We're just now rolling out the new parking tags, and they do not have an expiration. I don't know if you can see this, but they're just a regular tag like we used to have, but it does not have an expiration date. So faculty, staff, y'all are in luck with that. And as soon as, if you ever retire, quit, whatever, just give us that tag back. So come over here and get your parking tag. It'll need your vehicle registration. And if you ever want more information on parking, we now have that information on our website. So if you go to solacc.edu, you can go to the safety and security page, and there's a parking section. It's got the maps, it's got the rules, it's got some good information on there. And make sure you stop by and get your photo ID if you haven't got one. Please stop by. They're free. Again, back to the parking. Your first tag is free. If you lose it, we're going to charge you, I think it's $5 for the next one. And you'll pay that as student accounts. Again, with photo ID and parking, just come to Valcourt or speak with your local security officer. So help us help you. I always throw this slide in there. Again, there's nothing too small to report. Let us know what's going on. Let us know how we can help you. We definitely want to do that. We want to make sure everybody stays as safe as possible. All right, hopefully I haven't scared everyone too much about infectious diseases on campus, whether it be COVID or something as simple as a cold. It's all pretty much the same. We all need to make sure that we wash our hands. We want to stay as far apart as we can, stay out of crowds. If we feel sick, stay home. And of course, active shooter, stay safe, report any suspicious activity. Let us know how we can help you. If we can come to your areas and speak to you individually or in groups, that's fine. Just remember prevention, preparation, and then make sure you're reported. I really want to thank you all for your time. I do appreciate you choosing this session. I know it's not the most glorious information to give out there, but I'm going to go and open up the floor now for everyone. If you have any questions, let me look at chat and see if I see any questions.
Stephen.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Jackie. I have a comment more than a question about COVID.
Sure.
My best friend from high school in the New Orleans area and her family got together for Christmas dinner. Every single member contracted COVID. They are struggling right now. Some of their relatives are in their 80s. They are fighting this. And the young ones, the middle-aged ones, the older ones, the entire family. And I'm actually quite worried about them. And it's just what the health officials said, be careful when you get together. When she could still talk, she told me she wore a mask, but they all took it off to eat. And I don't know, the size of the home or whatever, but at any rate, it's just so sad. And it's really hit home. And, this whole family could lose multiple members. It's horrible. It's just so terrible. And it really hit close to home. So I just want to remind everyone to please continue to keep up your guard and be careful.
Thank you. That's very powerful. It's very true, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's so easy for us to forget, even for a second. Just for one split second, or like you mentioned, we're all sitting around dinner. Oh, everybody's healthy right now. Let's go ahead and take our mask off, and you see it even in restaurants. People getting together, and they think, for some reason, they think COVID stops. While you're eating or while you're drinking or what, but it's not. It's still out there. It's still moving. It's doing its job. And when we don't do our job, that's when we become infected. And I'm sorry to hear that. And I do hope that they get better soon. It's tragic when people get it. Of course, it's even more tragic when they do pass from it. But the long-term effects is horrible. Even if people do survive it, and when they're elderly, it can be something that's a game changer from that point on. And I am definitely sorry. I hope they get better. And that there's millions of cases like that. And like you said, I hope everyone does take this serious. This is very, very serious. And we've had a lot of support on our behalf from safety and security side. Everyone, for the most part, they do understand why we making the choices we make, and asking people to wear their mask and to make sure that they maintain that social distancing and stay home when they're not feeling well. But there's a select few that just don't want to play by the rules. And I hope that we can all help each other understand that.
Please remind, when we go back, the students to use the hand sanitizers.
Yes.
Because I noticed last semester, 3/4 of them would walk right by and not even entertain the thought of using them. So they're there for a purpose to use. So please remind everyone. We can't make them, but we can ask them nicely.
Correct. And the same with masks. Thank you for mentioning that. Same for masks. Make sure that they're wearing their masks. We will bump into some people, every once in a while, and sometimes it's faculty staff too, but everyone's very supportive of that. And if you ever see some of these areas or some of those hand sanitizers that are empty, because they do eventually empty out, let us know, let facilities know. We'll make sure and get those filled back up ASAP. We want to make sure everyone has that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hey, Stephen,
Yes.
A suggestion. Where medical lab science across from welding, there's a female restroom right there. Yep. It only has two stalls, and they are not 6 feet apart. Even the sink is like maybe 2 feet from the stalls.
Okay.
So I would suggest that there's only one person allowed in that restroom at a time. I'm doing that with my class whenever I let them out. My class is mostly female, but a lot of times maybe if you put a lock on that door, so that when you go in there, that person can lock the door. There really is no way to do, any kind of management of 6 feet apart or anything in that bathroom. It's too small.
And that's the restroom right across from welding, correct? They have the women's.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's to the left of welding. It was 2 stalls, and it's very tiny. I mean, my butt barely fits in between the sink and the stall, and I'm kind of big. So
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because honestly, that's one thing I didn't do, is go in the women's restroom, obviously, when we done some of these assessments. So I wouldn't even know how big that is. We preferred,
Right.
if you remember, we preferred that people go in one at a time when we was in phase 1. And now when we switched over to phase 2, we kind of opened it up to, you can have a little bit more freedom in there. But I'm glad you mentioned that. And if anyone has any other areas that we need to reassess, please let us know. We've done the best with what we could do, and we're finding out there's a few small areas here and there, like your restroom that you're talking about. So I'm making a note right now, and we will put a sign up. All right, women's restroom.
It says skip a stall, but there's only 2 stalls, so there's no way that
So
you can.
so that really is one person, right? So yeah, that's an easy one for us.
Right.
Yeah, easy fix right there. We just hope that people go by the signs. You know how that goes.
Well, there is a lock on the door, but it doesn't work.
Oh, it doesn't
I
work?
think if you made the door lock itself, so then it would be like a 1-person bathroom, basically.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So if there was a lock there, we can do that. Okay. Just like the unisex bathroom, it has a lock on it. So yeah, great. Okay. Anybody else? I know somebody wants to talk about something. COVID. We got a few minutes, just a couple minutes. So anybody else? I definitely thank you for everything. Thank you for attending this. And if you have any questions, give us a ring. We're always willing to come out and help you all out for sure. Thank you.
I have
All
some
right.
interesting information about COVID if anybody wants to hear.
Oh yeah, please.
Actually, in the medical lab, in the hospitals, we check for 3 versions of COVID every year before COVID-19 came out. So there's your 3 normal COVID, that we usually check for. So coronavirus, not, disease.
Right.
And it's pretty common in flu season. What I'm most worried about is that because people are not adhering to the rules, especially in Louisiana, is that the typical coronavirus strains will merge with our coronavirus 19 and cause a whole new strain that'll be a problem. So, yeah, so just something that people are talking about in the medical world and things like that. So just something you need to know about.
Yeah, that's scary stuff. I thought you was going to mention the new strains, because we have some new strains coming out, from other.
Yeah, we do have new strains that are more virulent. In other words, they're just as pathogenic, but they're easier to spread.
Wow. That's scary. When it's becoming easier to spread, that means the 6-foot rule should actually be probably 10 foot or 12 foot. So again, anytime you can take extra measures, by all means do it. If that means staying at home more, which I know we're all tired of staying at home, but it just means you can't go out there and sit next to somebody in the movie theater or sit next to somebody in restaurants and shopping centers and whatnot. So yeah. Well, thank you for that. All right. It looks like we got about another minute. Anybody wants to hang out, talk? We're good. Otherwise, I think we're good for this. And I think Dr. Miller is our next stop, right? All right. Thank you all. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.